Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Apollo Hospital Q3 FY21 earnings conference call. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Mayank Vaswani from CDR India. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rayman. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this call to discuss the financial highlights of Apollo Hospitals for Quarter 3 and the 9 months of financial year 21, which were announced yesterday. We have with us on the call today the senior management team comprising Mrs. Sunita Reddy, Managing Director, Dr. Hari Prasad, President of the Hospitals Division, Mr. A. Krishnan, Group CFO, Mr. Chandrasekhar, CEO of AHLL, Mr. Obul Reddy, CFO of the Pharmacy Business, and Mr. Sanjeev Gupta, CFO of Apollo 24/7. Before we begin, I would like to mention that some of the statements made in today's discussions may be forward-looking in nature and may involve risks and uncertainties. Please note the disclaimer mentioning these risks and uncertainties, which is on slide number 2 of the investor presentation that has been shared earlier. Documents relating to our financial performance have been shared with all of you, and these have also been posted on our corporate website. I would now like to turn the call over to Mrs. Sunita Reddy for her opening remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for taking time out to join our call. Even on a Saturday. I believe that all of you have received the earnings document that we shared yesterday. Calendar year 2021 has begun on a very positive note with substantial breakthroughs achieved on COVID-19 vaccines. This pandemic, which created disruption to normal life in Quarter 1 and Quarter 2, has now started receding substantially in India. As the impact of the pandemic wanes, the healthcare industry is now gradually progressing towards normalcy. This recovery was evident in our performance in Quarter 3 FY21, which witnessed an ongoing uptick in patient footfalls and occupancy across the network. We saw substantial improvement on all metrics. On a quarter-on-quarter basis, healthcare services revenue grew 17%. Surgical volumes grew at 54%. Overall IP volumes for the group increased by 21%, and occupancy improved to 63% from 56% in Quarter 2. We had allocated 2,300 beds for COVID across the hospital network during the pandemic, and have now reduced the allocation to 1,500 beds as of December 2020. In Quarter 3 FY21, COVID contributed to 15% of net revenues with a 25% share of occupied beds. COVID-related healthcare services revenue has now begun to taper off and is being effectively substituted with non-COVID revenue. However, since there has been limited resumption in the airline and rail traffic across the country, out-of-state and international business continues to be affected, especially on the OP front. OP is at around 65 to 70% of normal levels, and we expect that progressive resumption of travel will bring back older levels of volumes and are in parallel investing additional effort in strengthening local care. Against this backdrop, let me walk you through the financials for the quarter. The company recorded standalone revenues of 2,367 crores and consolidated revenues of 2,760 crores. On a like-for-like basis, revenue growth was at 6%. The pharmacy platform as a whole reported double-digit revenue growth at 17%, while healthcare services revenue degrew by 4% during the quarter. Our new hospitals recorded revenue growth of 7%, while mature hospitals revenue degrew by 8% year on year. Margins in mature hospitals were strong at 20.6, up from 12.3 in Quarter 2, an increase of 830 basis points. I am happy to share that our margins in new hospitals were at 13.8, a strong improvement from 8.81 in quarter 2 and more than 350 basis points on a year-on-year basis. The pre-India's EBITDA for quarter 3 FY21 stood at 301 crores compared to 201 crores in the previous quarter, a growth of 50%. With this, healthcare services EBITDA was at 229 crores, 101% growth compared to an EBITDA of 114 crores in quarter 2 FY21. EBITDA after giving effect to India's 116 was at 322 crores. A comprehensive cost optimization initiated in quarter 1 FY21 continued into this quarter as well, and we recorded a savings of 40 crores. As guided earlier, we expect to sustain a cost saving of 100 crores to 125 crores in FY22. As most of you closely tracking us are aware, the front-end pharmacy business was separated into Apollo Pharmacies Limited in quarter 2 FY21 with effective date as September 1st, 2020. AHEL now has pharmacy distribution as its business segment, continuing to hold 25.5% stake in Apollo Pharmacies Limited. The pharmacy platform, that is including the front-end retail portion, delivered a strong revenue and EBITDA growth in quarter 3 FY21. The pharmacy platform reported a growth of 1,440 crores in quarter 3 FY21, registering a 17% year-on-year growth. AHEL, which continues to be the exclusive distributor for Apollo Pharmacies, reported revenues of 1,126 crores in quarter 3 FY21 and 73 crores of EBITDA at 6.45% EBITDA margin. AHLL recorded EBITDA of 11 crores as compared to the 5.7 crores in quarter 3 FY20. The business has recorded a 6% year-on-year growth in top line. Net debt as of 31st December 2020 is rupees 2,598 crores. We have a debt to equity ratio of 0.71. In January, AHEL has raised equity capital of 1,170 crores via QIP. We are delighted with the response from marquee investors and pleased to share that the book was oversubscribed by 12.5 times. Part of this capital will be deployed towards acquiring the balance 50% stake in Apollo Gleneagles Hospital in Kolkata. Additionally, the proceeds from the fundraise would also enable AHEL to seek inorganic opportunities and further develop its digital platform, Apollo 24/7. Our board has approved the scheme of amalgamation of our wholly owned subsidiaries, that is Apollo Home Care Limited and Western Hospitals Corporation with itself. The amalgamation of these two companies of the parent is expected to deliver significant synergies. I am happy to state that we have partnered with the government in the world's largest vaccination program and have commenced vaccination of healthcare workers in 27 Apollo vaccination centers across the country. To conclude, we believe that things are moving in the right direction, and this quarter has helped us to gain momentum on the inpatient and surgical front. We have been able to cement our position as the safest network of hospitals, providing world-class care for our patients during these trying times. Our initiatives to optimize and streamline the business have placed us in a good position to capitalize on the future growth potential over the medium and long term. I now have Dr. Hariprasad, Krishnan, Obul Reddy, Chandra and Sanjeev from 24/7 with me to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and two. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking questions. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Neha Manpuria from JP Morgan. Please go ahead.
Thank you for taking my question. My first question is on the ARPOB. Our ARPOB continues to surprise on the upside, seeing strong growth. While I understand the surgical volumes are going up, but how should we look at a sustainable ARPOB growth from the current levels? Or, should we look at the current year as a, elevated number which will normalize going forward?
The ARPOB growth is clearly because the surgical volumes have gone up, and also because the COVID ARPOB which we showed in quarter 2, quarter 3 has come down. So this has been reflected in the ARPOB, which is currently at 40,000.
And next year, ma'am, would we be able to grow on this number as surgical continues to normalize on the 40,000?
So two things which is important for you to understand is, our new hospitals have been doing well also, as you have seen. And the new hospitals ARPOB has also increased well, in this overall mix that you're seeing by cluster. We are aware that the new hospitals as a segment was around 32,000 ARPOB last year, and that has gone to 36,000 now. So the new hospitals ARPOB, and we all know that the COVID ARPOB is only around 28,000 or whatever that is, around that number. So clearly, the new hospitals ARPOB is continuing to do well, and that we expect should be, hence it's a sustainable number going forward. If you look at Tamil Nadu, etc., clearly, we still have ability to push the ARPOB because we still don't have some of the high-end surgeries and some of the international patients. We still have a potential to get Tamil Nadu higher and some of the other places like that higher as well.
And can the new hospitals get to 40,000 ARPOB over time? Would that be possible?
We would probably for now look at it at around 36 to 38. We are now at 36. We probably will look at 36 to 38 as the first milestone there, and then take it higher.
Okay. Understood. My second question is on the cost side. Again, I know ma'am mentioned that we will be able to sustain about 100 to 125 crores of cost saving in FY22. But versus the level that we've achieved in this quarter, should we look at this 100 to 125 as incremental, or, this is the base on which our cost will increase? How should we look at the operating costs?
It will be based on the FY20 base. When we said 100 to 125 crores, it will be based on the FY20
Understood.
base. So clearly it would be, some of that is already baked into the numbers.
But there is incremental opportunity for cost saving since we've achieved only 40.
Okay. No. So yes, broadly, if you ask me, a bit of incremental opportunity is there for now. I wouldn't want to still guide that there is significant opportunity. But 100 to 125 will continue to. So the current EBITDA is something that we would like to sustain and grow. Let me put it like that.
Understood. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anubhav Agarwal from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. Good afternoon. One clarity on the previous question. So when you say 40 crore saving, this was saving in this quarter, right? Which annualizes about 160 crores. Out of that, you are saying that 100 to 125 crores is sustainable in fiscal 22.
Yeah, of the 40 crores saving, there is also 10 crores in Delhi, which is not getting consolidated in our results. So clearly, the 30 crores is the number that we have in the quarter, which is consolidated. So the annualized number of that is 120 crores, and which we said we continue to say 100 to 125 crores, which is why I said that the current EBITDA is something we can sustain and grow.
Okay, very clear. And second clarity on the ARPOB number, even when you look at mature hospitals, there, I think the ARPOB that we have done this time is the highest ever we have done. So just want to understand, is there a big difference in the payer mix right now that the ARPOB is significantly higher right now? Because this ARPOB is highest ever, and still includes a good contribution of COVID. So clearly something has gone different in the non-COVID ARPOB.
So clearly the tertiary care work and the quaternary care work have picked up. And, earlier I think a little bit with of the COVID pandemic fear lingering on, people have not really come for all of the elective surgeries which were lower ARPOB. For example, some of the orthopedic work and, some of the general surgical work. But what we have done is to look at the intensity of the case mix, and this has really changed in terms of we're looking at more of transplants, we're looking at more of onco, and we're looking at more of the high-end cardiac and high-end neuro. So this is really this is really reflected in the ARPOB.
You're saying that it was not the payer mix difference, it was largely the case mix difference which is resulting in this?
Yes.
Okay. And just 2-3 questions on the Apollo 24/7. When you have started this ProHealth thing, what exactly in layman's term it means? Does it simply mean that if somebody comes for the or digital consultation platform, rather than him choosing the doctor himself right now, the AI platform will help him suggest some of the options the doctors he can go for?
No, I think there's a little bit of confusion here. So ProHealth is our preventive healthcare checkup, which is, along with the COEs we promote like Onco, etc. We believe that there's a potential to really reach 1,000 crores of revenue from preventive health itself. So the preventive health product has AI inbuilt into it. It also has, gene sequencing and understanding, doing a genetic analysis. It is coupled with AI. It's a very high-end product which is focused on well-being. So it's preventive healthcare and well-being, and this is where we've launched it, and we believe that we can scale this up to about 1,000 crores of revenue in the next 36 months.
And this is part of 24/7 or is this outside 24/7?
No, it's part of AHEL, but 24/7 will be used to actually funnel patients into ProHealth.
It will be both.
Okay. And just 1 or 2 more questions on 24/7. One is you announced the HDFC Bank partnership. What's been the experience there so far? I know it's early days, but still trying to get some experience from corporate partnership. And any other partnerships that you also done after that?
Sanjeev, you want to talk about the HDFC partnership?
Yeah, thanks, AK. So thanks for the question. So HDFC partnership, yeah, it is early days, but we are seeing a lot of momentum. HDFC has got a very large, customer database, and HDFC Bank as a service, on the health side, they want to promote this amongst the entire user base. And we are seeing a good traction as far as HDFC and Apollo 24/7 partnership is concerned. And apart from this, we are also, in the dialogue with a couple of more big corporates to have strategic, tie-ups. And with time, we'll talk about that also. But at this stage, early, but we are seeing good results.
Okay, thank you. I'll join back the queue.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sameer Baisiwala from Morgan Stanley. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much, and good afternoon, everyone. Is it possible to talk about the overall occupancy, how we should see this go forward? I think it's about 63% now, and pre-COVID it used to be 68, 69, and especially with the COVID patients moving out.
So currently it is at 63%, and I think the main factor in that is that we mentioned earlier that travel had not yet opened up. So these are mostly, it's a reflection of our increase in local market share, and we truly believe that, when the road and air travel opens up completely, that the occupancies will move up significantly. We are seeing very healthy trends in all our new hospitals, some of which are in Tier 2, where healthcare has become localized and people are using these facilities. Our mature hospitals are also starting to do well, but I think the reason that we believe that next quarter we should be able to see a pickup in occupancy with travel and roads opening up.
Okay, great. Is it a possibility that COVID patient-related revenues move out faster than we get recovery in the core business? So therefore, quarter to 2 quarters, we would actually trend down.
So 17% is the revenue from COVID, and I'm not talking about occupancy, but I think that this will be balanced when the international patients come in, and like I said, all the travel, etc., opens up. Plus, there is still a little bit of a lingering fear that we really need to go to a hospital for surgery. Like I said, our RPOB is a reflection of the intensity of case mix that we're getting. So we'll also get the high margin secondary care work coming back. So net occupancies will go up.
Okay. Thanks for this. Great job done on the cash flow and net debt management. So is it possible to talk a bit more on the QIP fundraise as to how do we break up between Gleneagles and then how much you want to invest in 24/7 and other inorganic opportunities?
So we raised 1,170 crores. We will use 410 crores for Gleneagles. Another 150 has been allocated for use for 24/7, and another 150 for our diagnostics. So really, we are going to grow the diagnostic place in AHLL. Currently, we have over 650 diagnostic centers, and we believe that in the next 24 months, we must be the strongest diagnostic player in the south, moving on to the east as well as the north. So we have a end use for 700 crores. The balance will be used to reduce debt and then strengthen our balance sheet, because when required, we will have the ability to do some bolt-on acquisitions that we are looking at to strengthen our presence in certain markets.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. With your permission, one last question from my side.
Yes.
Apollo Pro Health seems to be a great step, Sunita. So, anything you can share on adoption? I know you've given a revenue target of 1,000 crores over the next 3 years, but just on monetization, what's the revenue model, and are there any international benchmarks, which we can use as case study?
So when we started out, we looked at iCAG. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it was a Chinese company that was doing these run-of-the-mill checkups. So, and the TAT was around 2 hours. But when we looked at what Apollo stood for, we said, we just can't do these checkups. And if you look at a lot of these people who are checking blood, they are doing their own version of a checkup. So we said the Apollo one has to be more meaningful. It has to have lifetime value. And keeping this in mind, we've created Pro Health, which is a package that looks after well-being. It looks at markers that include stress, anxiety, besides the other things which are normal, the cardiac and the cardiac, but it looks very closely at neuro issues. Having said that, we've already, since we launched it just last month, we have 12,000 people who have undergone that checkup. We have case studies where people have reduced weight and where we've managed to keep their blood sugar at normal levels. So yes, I think the feedback has been very good, and we are getting ready to launch it on an all-India basis. And especially at this time, when people are looking at OP and saying, your OPs have fallen away, I think this is something that will bring back the OPs.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin Agarwal from DAM Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Ma'am, on the Apollo Gleneagles Hospital, with the recent changes, the insurance scheme which the West Bengal government has started, does it have any implications? What implications do you think it has for the business over there?
So this was something that was always there. It's a state insurance scheme which has always been there. If you look at they have been pushing that a bit, but the funds available in the government kitty is not as high as the push which is there from the government. So some of this we'll have to look at it as pre-election push. But we don't see that this is going to impact us negatively. We are fine, and we are whatever is required to be done on the government cases, we continue to do that. So we should be able to navigate this well.
This should not be a source of any potential concern around the West Bengal market, per se.
No.
Okay. Secondly, now with the cost savings and all that we've introduced in the managed to achieve in the business, what should be a sustainable EBITDA margin for our mature hospitals now going forward? We used to target 23% earlier. Is it an aspirational target now, a higher 24, 25, and higher in terms of where we can get to in the mature business, and where can the new hospitals really get to with this the incremental tailwind of these cost savings?
Yeah, so at the mature hospitals level, the first target is to get to 23, 24 in the next year. That is what we would like to get to. But clearly, the business needs to come back, because some of the earlier businesses of international, etc., is also important for us. We definitely, you are right that our cost efforts that we have taken allows us to achieve that a bit faster if the business comes back at the same pace over the next 1-2 quarters. We are hoping for the same, because clearly there is some kind of comfort in the patients' minds and the consumers' minds to come back. We are seeing patients are also started traveling from Bangladesh to Chennai. We have also seen patients traveling from Assam and West Bengal to Chennai. So we have seen that all of that, in fact, 60% of our pre-COVID levels, even from out of Chennai, has started coming back. So which is definitely good. So if that comes back, you're right, we should be able to see beyond 24 in the next 2 years.
And lastly, on this one, the new hospitals have also had a very spectacular improvement in EBITDA margins. Is this sustainable, this 14% pre-Ind AS EBITDA margin level? This is the threshold, the level to really work with from here on?
So we have been guiding that we should get to 15% in the next 12 to 18 months, if you will, right? And this is what we continue to work on. And of course, the 13.8 is something that we have got for this quarter. Some of that is also enabled by high-end surgeries. And as some of the other surgeries come, we will still think we should be able to get 13 to 15% next year.
Okay. And speaking of the last one, you mentioned about the investment in the diagnostic platform. So what are would be the 3-year goals for this business? Currently, it's like a 160, 170 crore analyzed business from a revenue perspective, from a net revenue perspective. Is that fair? And two, where do you see this business really heading to over the next 2 to 3 years, given the fact that a couple of the large pan-India players have become very aggressive in terms they make very large-scale investments in southern India, which is our primary market at this point of time.
Chandrasekhar, would you answer that?
Yes, ma'am. So our strategy will be to strengthen in our existing markets, which is essentially South and East, and opportunistic entry into some of the other larger markets. We are, as you rightly pointed out, we are tending to a 170 to 180 crore for FY21, but we are hoping to have a significant growth in FY22, combined by a very few new markets, but largely consolidating existing markets. We are looking at a 3-year horizon to top up 2 to 3 year horizon where we want to hit the 500 crore mark. The next year's direction should be upward of 270.
And Mr. Chandrasekhar, how do you view the increased competitive intensity in the market with the two large pan-India players really increasing their investments in this business, in this area in a meaningful way?
So it is not new capacity creation, it is organizing the unorganized. So from that perspective, the pie in terms doesn't change much. Yes, competitive intensity could change with more corporate behavior, but I guess there is from an industry perspective, it is still 85% unorganized. So the headroom for growth for organized players is only going to continue to be bullish.
And the
It's quite
brand
competitive.
the brand acceptance in these markets of Apollo is very strong, especially in the southern markets, which, as you said, if someone is looking at consolidating and growing, we have a very strong brand acceptance in these markets, which we are already present in. So if Chandrasekhar has a plan to grow, which he has, clearly we will see that we should be able to get the market share as well.
So if you just push on that, does it lead to a meaningful escalation in pricing competition in this market, in your assessment?
When unorganized moves to organized, I think price actually gets corrected upwards because the price from the unorganized is which is lower. So I guess it's a good play going forward for a few more years for the organized players, even from a price perspective and price consolidation perspective. Secondly, I've not mentioned this, but we are definitely also starting to see significant amount of work that is starting to come via our 24/7 consult leading to diagnostics and diagnostics booking itself coming directly. As the digital platform ramps up, I think the ability to serve via strong presence and good phlebotomist home collection capabilities is what we are focusing and building on. We are very bullish about the future opportunity coming via digital as well.
That's it. Thank you very much. Best of luck.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shantanu Basu from SMIF Limited. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity. I would like to know the COVID occupancy in Q3 and the non-COVID occupancy in Q3. If you can break up your overall occupancy into COVID and non-COVID.
So COVID occupancy, one second, just let me. We have brought down the number of beds of COVID to 1,600 levels in December, and we have brought it down even further, the overall COVID beds which we had actually kept aside. And now, if you look at the COVID occupancy, out of the 1,600 that we had, in Q3 we were at 73% occupancy, which is 1,173 beds were occupied by COVID. And if you look at the non-COVID occupancy, one second. Non-COVID occupancy was 60%.
60%, right?
60% for Q3. But again, it's important since I give you this color, in that 60%, December was 67% of non-COVID. So clearly, while the quarter was 60% on non-COVID, December has already gone to 67% on non-COVID. And in the COVID, while quarter was 73%, December was 48%.
Okay. Okay, so would it be right to assume that, we are inching close to our long-term 69% mark?
No, I think it will probably take Q1 before we get back. It's not something that we can say because the number, if you look at the beds, we have a COVID bed also, right? Which we will now start releasing and putting it back to non-COVID, right? So it's also a factor of classification of those beds, right? Because once we reclassify that and get that inventory back to non-COVID, our occupancy overall will probably show a bit of a dip, but our revenues will still hopefully be okay as we get some of the non-COVID revenues come back, which will be a bit higher ARPOB. So I think to get back to the 67% and 69%, we'll have to think of it as Q1, Q2.
Okay, great. And what's the number of COVID beds that you have currently in Jan?
Now it's come down to how much? So it's now further down. No? Jan is around 800 beds.
Jan 800. Okay.
Inventory is around 800, and the occupied beds is even lesser.
Okay, right. So it is coming down drastically, right? From 1,600 to 800. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Prakash Agarwal from Axis Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. First question on this Apollo Kolkata. So here, what I understand is, the consolidation will start from February, but I'm trying to understand, the ARPOB has increased already. when do we expect normalcy in occupancy, A? And how do we improve the margin from the previous peak, and what is the management planning to do here, if that can be highlighted?
So firstly, we won't consolidate that from February. It will probably be March or April because, we've still not completed the transaction and we can consolidate it only after the transaction. So, we will complete the transaction over the next 30 to 45 days. So it will probably be March or April. Overall, Calcutta, we have to be, if you look at FY20 levels, etc., we should go back in FY22. It's a 400 to 450 crore opportunity on revenue for the next year with at least 75 to 80 crores EBITDA, which is what we should think we should be able to get in next year.
So I was trying to understand your medium-term plans in order to optimize the margins. I mean, first goal obviously would be to achieve the older occupancy and margins, but how can we go beyond is what I wanted to understand.
That is correct.
So So what we've done is, we've really recruited a few more surgeons and doctors. We are strengthening our centers of excellence. So in terms of cardiology, orthopedics, oncology, and neuro, we have very strong offerings. And with this, I think we should see higher ARPOBs and better margins. We've already recruited these doctors. You would have noted that even Saurav Ganguly chose to come to Apollo Gleneagles. So it's being positioned as a very high-end clinical care center.
Okay.
So we are pushing it for a 40,000 ARPOB in the next year itself.
Got it. Perfect. And secondly, for Medix Lucknow, I understand consolidation has already started, and would it come under the new hospital cluster, and would that be the reason for a margin spike in that segment?
Which one you think? Medix has not yet come. It's only going to come ahead, going forward.
Going forward. Okay. So this would further improve the margin levels?
Yes, it will. So, there are going to be 2-3 areas which we see significant margin improvement in the next year also, even beyond this quarter. One is, as you rightly said, Calcutta. Second, Medix, because Medix is also going to be a significant, it's doing very well. They'll do over 250 crores of revenue hopefully next year, and will be at least 40 plus crores of EBITDA. They already had a 10 crores run rate on EBITDA, and they don't have much of COVID. In fact, almost negligible COVID in Lucknow as we speak. And that's it. And the third thing is Proton is also something that we are quite excited about, because we are seeing that we are seeing a good spike coming from patient inquiries. So, we are already at 100 crore run rate on Proton. If you look at Q3, and that's at EBITDA negative and EBITDA break even, and we should see significant accretion in the overall EBITDA from Proton as well into the next year.
Okay. Madam had something to say?
No, I said Lucknow is already at 18% margin, and the strength for us in Lucknow is the fact that we are probably one of the best tertiary care hospitals. Our ICU beds, which are about 1/3 of total beds, are at very high occupancy. So the potential to move to a higher ARPOB definitely exists in Lucknow.
Understood. Fair enough. And last one from my side is on the pharmacy business. So understand, given the the restructuring, that margin had a step down, but my understanding was step down would be about 100 basis points. We see it's more than that. What is the outlook and the reason for the same?
We have, on a combined basis, if you split the accounts between, AHL is only consolidating the back-end results. On a combined basis, we are at the same level. Last quarter, we are at 6.4% of the EBITDA on the overall sales, and this quarter is about 6.3%. As you know, when the demerger is affected, there is some cost adjustment between the two entries. And also the growth is about 17-18% on the overall sales against the previous quarter 25%.
So there are some 24/7 costs also which are there, which is something which has been absorbed by the pharmacy business, as you know. And that is also, otherwise, if you exclude that, maybe the like-for-like EBITDA margins would have been 6.7, 6.8.
Okay. And what would be the outlook, sir, going forward next year?
So we should be back with the normal growth rates, and then, we have 24/7 growing up, and then that will also contribute to the sales and margins. We'll see that, and then that will be...
But it would move forward, right? I mean, the margin trajectory would inch up to 7% plus mark?
See, if you notice that we are at 6.3, 6.4% now, and we should be closing this year anywhere around 6.5 to 6.6% and move next year to 7%.
Okay, perfect. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Damayanti Kerai from HSBC Securities. Please go ahead. Damayanti, your voice is breaking. I request you to move to an area with network, or if you're on a hands-free, request you to use the handset. Sorry, Damayanti, we can't hear you. We seem to have lost the line for Damayanti. We'll move to the next question. The next question is from Prateek Mandana from Nomura. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. So my first question is on Apollo 24/7 business. I just wanted to understand that the revenues that we say that we will get from 24/7. So will we get directly into 24/7, or is it more of a concierge for like diagnostics and Pro Health? As you said that they will funnel the patients into 24/7 and diagnostics. You will book for the diagnostics. So where will the revenue get booked? Will it be in AHLL or Pro Health or the e-pharmacy or teleconsulting? So just some bit on that. How will the revenue get booked, and how much of revenues do we expect?
No problem. So clearly, if you look at the pharmacy, we will ensure that the pharmacy business revenues is booked in the back end of 24/7. So that is something that we will continue. The back end pharmacy business will still continue to be at Apollo 24/7, and we will start showing that eventually as Apollo 24/7 scales up. But on the other parts, whichever is diagnostics, etc., the way we are looking at it is that business will get pushed on to the Apollo Diagnostics for revenue booking, and there will be a revenue share which will get a margin or a commission which will get booked by Apollo 24/7. So there will be once Apollo 24/7 starts scaling up, we will obviously have to figure out how we start reporting GMV, etc., so that the perspective of GMV of Apollo 24/7 is understood. But it is again something that we will plan in the next year.
Sanjeev, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think AJ already gave the right answer. So the entire revenue accounting with respect to the pharmacy being delivered or the diagnostic services being offered by 24/7, or as a matter of fact any other services, those things will go to respective Apollo entities like APL, AHEL or AHLL. And as far as the GMV part of it is concerned, I think we'll work out some mechanism to also highlight that so that there is a right perspective available with everyone.
Okay. And to add on to that, so again, there will be multiple divisions. So what kind of contribution from each division can we expect into like the revenues for 24/7 diagnostics, Pro Health, e-pharmacy and teleconsulting? If you can just highlight some.
Bit early now, we will probably take it forward as we start doing it, but broadly giving you a guideline, I think 15 to 20% margin is what we expect to do on both diagnostics and teleconsults. Is that fine, Sanjeev?
Yeah. Sorry, I think I was not able to convey my question clearly. So I was asking, sir, the revenue that they say 100 will be the revenue for 24/7. So how much of it do we expect to come from each division, like from diagnostics and teleconsulting and e-pharmacy? So how much revenue contribution from each segment? Which will be the biggest contributor to Apollo 24/7?
See, we have about 8 health products coming into the platform. Some of them are yet to start and go online. So next year, and we'll have a better view going forward, and we'll be back with those numbers in Q1 of next year. It's not a
But when we look at the target, we have been saying that, when we get to the overall target split over the next 3, 4, 5 years, 50% of that will be coming from the pharmacy business. The other 50% will be a combination of what we spoke now. Teleconsults plus diagnostics plus condition management and some insurance.
Got it. And then, sir, any number that you want to highlight currently, what is the run rate for 24/7 revenues, if you can highlight that?
Just, 1 or 2 products are under phase, and we will be coming out from next year to specific numbers.
Okay. And just one last question from my side, if I can ask that. On the number of pharmacies, what is the number of front-end pharmacies that are now there?
We have 4,000 pharmacies operational as of 31st December, and we have added about 252 stores during the year, but most of them were added in Q3. So we are on track, but there was delay in the schedule of opening because of the COVID pandemic. And we will be on track to open about 300 stores as usual, 300 plus.
Got it. Thank you, sir. That will be all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Divyansh Kalra from Perpetuity Venture. Please go ahead.
Hello. Thank you, sir. So my question is, I just wanted to understand the breakup of inpatient and outpatient business from hospitals, and what are the normalized levels, and what was the result, what was happening in Q3? So any update in Q3? Thank you.
Can you get offline on this, because we don't have the exact split of the OP and IP revenues as of now.
So normalized level historically would be fine. Rough estimate. 20 is outpatients.
That's
20 is outpatients.
That's right.
Okay. And were we seeing any divergence in last quarter? Because as Ms. Reddy...
in last quarter of OP.
Outpatients. Achha, OP increased in last quarter. Okay. Ma'am, you said something in your opening remarks that international business OP was very much affected. So was there something, so OP business contributes significantly in terms of international patients. So my question is, I'm just trying to break up domestic patients versus international patients. So what was the ratio of inpatient and outpatient breakup for international patients? Yeah.
So just looking at international is probably just addressing maybe 10% of total volume. I think what was significant is that airlines were not, we didn't get, even within India, patients were not able to travel. And we believe that when that comes back, the OP will definitely pick up. But international is about 10% of that.
Achha, this is normalized level. 10% IP, OP and 90% IP. This is normalized level for international patients. Am I correct?
10% OP is correct.
Okay, or normalized level. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from Harith Ahmed from Spark Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity. So I'm looking at the employee costs for the quarter. There's a 15% quarter-on-quarter decline and a 26% YOY decline. So what's driving this sharp reduction? Is it the front-end pharmacy transaction, or is there any other reasons for this?
So that is all. Yeah, the front end, as you rightly have assessed, the front end pharmacy business has been separated out and it has been put into Apollo Pharmacies Limited. So the full quarter impact of that is clearly visible in the reported numbers. So that's what you can see. Of course, as we said, as Ms. Sunita already said, the overall cost savings otherwise for the quarter was 40 crores and 30 crores in the consolidated numbers for the quarter, which includes a bit of in the 30 crores embedded would be almost around 15 to 20 crores of manpower. So otherwise it is the Apollo Pharmacies Limited which has got shifted out completely, because last quarter you had only 1 month impact of Apollo Pharmacy Limited, whereas this quarter you have the 3 months impact of Apollo Pharmacy Limited.
Okay, got it. My second question is on AHLL. So we've been in a consolidation phase over the last 12, 18 months, and that's reflecting in significant margin improvement over this period. So when we think of further network expansion here, what are our plans? You mentioned about diagnostics. So on the other formats, can you give us some details on our next medium-term expansion plan?
Chandra?
Yeah. So I think, we spoke about diagnostics being the primary area of focus, and that's going to consume over 70-75% of our focus in terms of expanding within and consolidating within existing markets, as well as some opportunistic expansion into other new markets. And importantly, the second focus will also be on going up the value chain in terms of our high-end test menu. So that's the two areas for which we will make both investments as well as marketing efforts to get into more and more higher-end test menu. I mean to say areas of oncogenomics and a few other areas that we have outlined. The growth primarily subsequently is in primary care network, will be on closer to communities is the initiative that we'll do. It will have ramifications also for diagnostics in terms of as we get closer to communities. So that's the third area of network. We're not looking at growing the secondary care network significantly, barring a small growth that we will do to assess the regulatory tailwinds that seem to be emerging in the space of IVF. But that will be a small growth which we'll carefully plan because IVF as a space is attractive, but we are mindful of the fact that it is predominantly unorganized, but there are some very good regulatory tailwinds that are likely to help organized play. So there is a small focus on growing that. Besides all of this, we're looking at some asset-light growth models, including expanding our franchisee network in the primary care.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. Last one on the Proton Center. We're now clocking annualized revenue run rate of over 100 crores, and you've broken even at the EBITDA level. And this, I presume, is without much of international patient volumes. So should we think of a significant ramp-up going into FY22 once international patients are back? So how should we think of Proton from here on?
Yes, our hope is definitely to double down on both domestic and international, because even the domestic opportunity on Proton is high, because there are now clearly it is, as Ms. Rita has been always saying, it's now become a gold standard in radiation globally. It's been a lot of doctors have got comfort around embracing it and also suggesting this for patients in specific organs like head and neck, pediatric, etc., where we have seen significant help and support being given to the patients. So we are quite hopeful that this should ramp up quite well in the next 2 years. And we should see good ramp up in EBITDA as well, because as you know, the EBITDA margins on this business is north of 40-50%.
Well said. Thanks for taking my question.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sameer Baisiwala from Morgan Stanley. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the follow-on. Just thinking about higher ARPOB, was there any pricing action that was meaningful in the quarter, cash market, insurance, or corporate side?
No, right.
Okay. Anything that you're planning over the next 3-6 months?
Next year, maybe not for.
Yes, nothing significant this year.
Okay, great. And the second is for the digital platform 24/7. Are you looking for any sort of equity dilution over there to either access capital or to access patient access?
So we have said that we have plans for that, and we have always been saying that at the right time we will unlock value in the overall pharmacy business also. And so we are open for all options there, and we will come back to you as we have better plans around the same.
Okay, great. And how are we thinking about the ALOS going forward? I think it's gone up from 3.8 to now good 4.3, 4.4.
So 4.4, I think, reflects the COVID occupancy. we can hope to see something below 4 in the next quarter and an improvement in the beginning of next year.
Okay, great. One final, and that's on the side. Any thoughts on COVID vaccine being available on the private market?
Well, we have a plan on rollout. We have a cold chain logistics and everything prepared to roll it out, but we're just awaiting government approval.
So you think it can take a couple of months or longer?
No,
or?
I think within maybe mid-March, end of March for sure.
I see.
Is mid-March.
Okay. Okay, great. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Ayush Tansari from Allegro. Please go ahead.
Hi, my question was, thanks for the opportunity. My question was, what is the like-to-like pharmacy revenue and EBITDA as to pre-restructuring?
17% has been the growth overall for the pharmacy platform for the quarter. And the EBITDA margins, as Sobul said, were 6.3 to 6.4 in that range. And what we have reported in the back end is 6.5.
78% you said, right?
What is it?
Sorry, I missed the number. What is the growth number?
17%.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Girish Pathak from Goldman Sachs. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. So on the pharmacy, the quarter EBITDA growth is lower than the year-to-date growth. So any thoughts there?
Talking about which quarter? Any reference? Specific quarter?
No, so this quarter, the like-to-like pharmacy EBITDA growth is 20%, and I think year-to-date is in the range of 30%.
We have a robust Q2, and that has contributed to the higher sales and higher EBITDA. But EBITDA is overall in the same range that in the last two quarters, 6.4 in Q2 and 6.3 in Q3, and that 6.3 is coming on the back of absorbing some online pharmacy costs.
Okay. During the QIP meeting, we had requested some more, KPIs on 24/7. So I was expecting probably this quarter to see some metrics around that in terms of traffic, user engagement. So when can we see those disclosures? Because typically your disclosures are very good.
We'll take a couple of quarters before getting that, because there is a high level of competitive intensity around this business, as you know, and there's a lot of competitor interest also. Unfortunately, all of them are unlisted, and we are the only listed players. So we have to keep that in mind also. We know that our transparency levels have been good, and we will get back to that over the next 2 quarters surely.
The traffic increase quarter-over-quarter for your online pharmacy ordering or the consults, anything can be shared right now for this quarter?
Just on the teleconsults, let me say that we've already done 250,000 teleconsults. We are tracking about 2,000 a day. But more importantly, if you look at our telemedicine platform, etc., for the government, we do about 7,000, 8,000 a day. So we really believe that there is a potential to ramp it up. And just going forward, we will. The reason that we're seeing a slight slowdown in teleconsults is that doctors are moving back to the offices. And that's the reason. But at the same time, 24/7 is increasing the number of doctors on its platform. It was 6,000 last month, and they have a plan to really double the number of doctors. And with that, the teleconsults will significantly increase. Plus, the adoption of teleconsults by our senior doctors will take a little bit more time. But definitely there is a huge opportunity, and the plan is there. We think that post our March quarter, we will be able to share numbers with you.
Anything on the monthly and daily active users, if you can share? There are certain external app traffic monitoring sites where we are seeing some decline in terms of the traffic activity.
No. So we said that with post-COVID, slight decline because doctors had moved into their offices and started seeing patients. But we believe that again it will pick up because we are onboarding more doctors and we're also onboarding senior doctors who have not been used to the telemedicine platform. But we'll share the metrics with you post the March quarter.
Okay. That will be very useful. Just one more housekeeping thing. So the impact of AS 116, is seemingly lower this quarter versus the last 2 quarters. So any asset that has gone out?
The pharmacy front end, no? The pharmacy front end has been shifted out.
Large part of the retail rental moved into the pharmacy front end entity. That is the main reason.
Understood. Thank you for taking my question.
Thank you. The next question is from Nitin Agarwal from DAM Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the follow-up. Ma'am, on the hospital business, now when you look at capital allocation over the next 2 to 3 years, barring the Gleneagles investment, how are you thinking about it? Is it more greenfield, more brownfield, more M&A, which is going to primarily drive capex? And what stage do we need to really step up capex if we need to?
So post the Calcutta acquisition, the way that we're thinking of growth is one is definitely a focus on existing assets and improving asset utilization. The second is to grow our clusters and definitely to have a presence in the Delhi market where we have one hospital. So yes, to look at something in Delhi, we're looking at, and the way that we will do this is to bolt on acquisition. We have not really looked at greenfield. We're not looking at greenfield. We're also looking at revenue share options. So it's an asset-light growth strategy.
And so is there any sort of firm capital number in mind in terms of, is how we sort of approaching this? Because the concern that the hospital business in the past has been, exceptional sort of capital allocation phases at different points in time. Do we see the same situation emerging for us at some point in time?
No, I think that if you look at the debt to EBITDA, we will keep it within 2 to 2.5. And debt equity currently at 0.71 coming down to 0.5. Our upward comfort level is 0.8. So I don't think we'll ever compromise the balance sheet, nor will we impact the free cash flows that we hope to see. Some of the growth will, some of the bolt-on acquisitions will be funded by free cash flows.
And the second one on AHLL, we talked about the different aspects of growth on the business, but how are we looking at, say, a 3-year picture on the business? There are obviously the AHLL business is made of 2 3 very different pieces of businesses which have limited synergy with each other at some level. So, structurally, how are we looking at the business? So when you take a long-term view, how do we independently invest in growing those businesses? Do those businesses need individual capital? Are there opportunities to get individual capital for those various segments?
Chandrasekhar?
Yes, ma'am. So there are opportunities on individual. There are areas of interest within the platform per se, but I think our preference is to keep the platform intact and seek investments at the platform level. Growth in a 3-year horizon, we are looking at growing year on year. In diagnostics specifically, we are trying to grow 30-35% kind of growth rates, which we are factoring in organically. On the overall numbers, we're tending to see at a platform level, we will hope to reach about, in 3-year time frame, we want to reach thereabouts of 1,800 to 2,000 crore and have a steady state 12 to 14% EBITDA margin.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anubhav Agarwal from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity again. 2-3 questions from me. One is on the COVID patients. The ARPOB is low at 27-28K, but what would you say on the EBITDA side? My sense will be the margins should be higher here, like something like 7-8K. Won't it be?
Similar margins is what we have. We don't have, the margins would not be lower, it won't be higher.
So you're saying 27, so 5-6K per bed per day, something like that. That's what you say.
It actually varies from state to state. So what we would say is, that it must be about 14%.
Sorry. So you're saying 14%?
Yeah, 14. What I said was that it varies from state to state. Governments had capping on COVID prices, so it would not be more than 14%.
So you're saying 4,000 rupees per day as a revenue, which is very similar to profitability of new hospitals that you have right now.
Yes.
Yes.
But it's diluted. So when you have a COVID bed in the mature hospital, it's diluted.
That's correct.
Okay. Second question is on the capex for the 24/7. In the sense of that you're talking about QIP money being part of the 100 odd crore being used there. Can you talk about what you're going to do with that over there in terms of let's say, capital expenditure? Which areas you're looking to strengthen over there?
So clearly, the two areas that we would like to spend more money on is one is the teleconsults and second is the condition management, because these are two areas that we believe is going to be more long-term, sustainable, and someone. So clearly, from our perspective, the way we look at it is, if we have to be the only platform or app that a patient should use, it's not about the pharmacy is not the differentiator. It is something that you will really use the app, provided you know that you have the ability to reach to the doctor, take care of your health, and also ensure that you do condition management and we are able to manage diabetes, have a health counselor for you, stuff like that. So there is a lot that we are planning around that. Many of that streams are already on. There is a separate tech team which is working on this. So it's you will see significant improvement in some of these over the next 6 to 9 months and not really quarter over quarter, which is why somewhere we are not able to give some of these quarter on quarter matrices also. But these are some of the plans which we have, which you will see showing up shortly.
So just a clarity on this, when you say spend on teleconsultation, condition management, so as a user, what I see, what's happening? Are we getting more cloud space when we are spending that incremental money here? Or are we using more AI here? So what will change? One is trending of the hardware at the back end. Second is in terms of user experience. Where would you say this bulk of the money is going?
Both user experience. Sanjeev, you want to talk about that? User experience and AI, and what are we building on those products? Specifically, want to guide Sanjeev?
Yeah, so typically the money which is going to be spent out is going to be on the technology front. And when I'm talking about technology, we are talking about the AI and its role in condition management and various bots that could help users experience, while coming into the app, as well as that could also help service them much better. So primarily at this stage, the money that is being spent in 247 is towards the technology build only. And I think 2-3 quarters from now, you would see that technology-enabled 247 app, which provides a very good user experience and actually takes care of many many problems in one. It provides solution across many problems in one app. So it's going to be technology based app than just a pharmacy kind of a thing. So we see that a lot of AI and ML play in 247 app. So primarily money is spent towards the technology build-up.
Sure, thanks. That's helpful, Sanjeev. If I can ask one last question on Pro Health Initiative. Sunitram, your target of 1,000 crore, I was a little confused with that because none of the even the large companies which are listed today on the diagnostic space, they do not have this preventive health revenues more than 150-200 crores, each one of them. And we're targeting 1,000 crores. So that one is looks to be a very steep target in 3 years. Secondly, can you also talk about
where are you targeting bulk of it, from corporate individual segment, and what's the capex? If let's say you reached your target of 1,000 crores, what would have been capex there?
So yes, you're right. Currently we're already at 262 crores in terms of what we are doing in terms of preventive healthcare. We do believe there's a large opportunity with corporates. We've tied up with many corporates to look after the health of their individuals. And as you know, COVID showed us that the importance of looking after your health, which is why, we're very focused on launching this product. The third part of it is, most of the retail consumers who use these products on the app, they never really have a physical interface with the doctor. And well-being is all about not just taking blood markers. It's not just, doing the exercise and following the diet. It's a combination of everything. And that's why we believe that ProHealth is something that is an offering that is differentiated from the rest. Finally, the layer of AI. With Microsoft, we have done the cardiac risk score. So in that, we had many learnings on how we can improve cardiac health. Through sugar, we had looked at condition management for diabetes. So it brings in cardiac, it brings in condition management. Overall, it looks at improving the well-being, including things like sleep, reducing anxiety, and the impact of it on your overall well-being. So yes, we really need to double. We have a plan to double the revenue 5 times. But just think of Apollo. We have 70 hospitals. We have clinics, 200 clinics. We have 24/7 that will be acting as a funnel to ask people, to allow people into this program. So I believe that we have the ability to do it, and this is really a space that we need to occupy.
And what's capex for this?
Around 50 crores over the next 3 years.
Oh, wow. So with 50 crore capex, you can almost get incremental 750 crore, and I'm assuming this will be at least 30% margin business.
Clearly, the existing assets there is a lot of existing assets which will be sweated significantly on this, as Ms. Sunita said. The utilization of our labs in our hospitals, etc., 50% today. So we have significant plans to sweat existing assets, which are, if you look at the assets which are already there in the lab space within the hospital, this is over 500 crores. So there is significant amount across this which we will be using to increase the scale. As Ms. Sunita said, it's a clinically designed product, and it's not something which is just a diagnostic product.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Krishna Prasad from Franklin Templeton. Please go ahead.
Thank you for taking my question. I have a few. First, you mentioned the kind of growth you've seen in the home care segment. I assume part of it is COVID-led. But can you talk about what kind of ambitions you have there and how this can scale up?
So, currently, we are, home care is now, clearly COVID has opened up the customers' minds in we doing transactions on home care. Earlier, it was a lot of nursing care that we were doing on the home care side. But with COVID, we were able to really manage a lot of people remotely. And that was a very, very strong product which got accepted by the consumer. This is something that we are now figuring out how we can use remote care to take care of the patients, using a product for the same, like a weekly call, a monthly call, etc. So these are things that we are trying to do, also health counselors, etc., which we are also putting from the home care side of things. So it is already doing 60 crores of revenue per year now, home care. We believe that with time what will happen is the handoffs from the hospitals to the home care will also start happening. We have to work on some of these over the next 1-2 years. But clearly we are seeing that some of these opportunities will play out well where, after an orthopedic surgery, we kind of say that we really are able to send home a patient in 2 days. as opposed to really keeping them for an overall ALOS of 4-5 days. So some of these will start lending itself, and we have also started doing ICU management, especially with COVID. We were able to set up ICUs at home as well, though it is a handful of cases, maybe 20, 25, but still we were able to do that effectively. So it is lending itself to a lot of opportunities. We'll have to work on it. Wearables are also going to be important as we keep collaborating or keep ourselves open for collaborating on that front on many with some of the other players. People like Siemens, Philips, all of them are thinking of some of these, and we will have a rollout planned over the next on some of these over the next 6 months.
Sure. Thank you. And my second question is, within AHL, I would have presumed that, daycare would have actually got a boost because of COVID. But, doesn't seem to be the case. I'm just wondering, is that the case at all? Or?
Chandrasekhar?
No, actually the quarter 3 daycare surgery work has come back. Quarter 1 and 2 was very poor. But quarter 3 we are seeing some of the backlogs getting back.
Right. So finally, on the disclosure side, I have a request. If you can provide, the front end, at least the free cash flow data on the front end on the pharmacy, that will be very helpful for us to assess the numbers.
Sure, we will.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you on that.
Thank you very much. We'll take that as the last question. I would now like to hand the conference back to the management team for closing comments.
So thank you again for joining us. As we look ahead, we continue to focus on vaccination. We did have a challenging 3 quarters where we were busy dealing with the pandemic. However, we believe that we've actually emerged stronger in the sense that we've rationalized costs. We've created focus around improving occupancies. We've created a renewed focus on asset utilization, and more importantly, focus on clinical differentiation, which is really all about Apollo's DNA. How do we do clinically differentiated products for our people? And I think that all of this will result in better ARPOBs as we move into the future. Our strategy on growing market share, ARPOB, and improving the offerings that we have from Apollo in terms of the verticals, which is Apollo Health and Lifestyle, where we want to grow diagnostics, improving pharmacy metrics, improving the hospital delivery, and launching 24/7 in a way that is meaningful, things that we will focus on, and we are so glad that you've been part of this journey. We look forward to your continued support. So have a great weekend, stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Apollo Hospitals Limited, that concludes the conference. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. You may now disconnect your lines.